I think another thing about prayer that's so fun that I feel like I've really learned is that God is so good even when he says no. That like that's his protection and that he is still good in that.
This is Equip and Engage, a podcast by Subsplash, exploring how ministry, technology, and innovation come together to equip churches around the world to engage their communities.
Hi, and welcome to today's podcast where we are going to be talking about building culture. I'm your host, Carolyn Farney, and I am joined today by the co-founder of Subsplash and wife to the CEO, Kristy Turner.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. This is fun for me because not only have you been a dear friend of mine for probably 10 years or so now, but I'm usually interviewing men. So this is like the first one where we're talking about like hair ahead of time.
I know,
and
nails.
And
you don't talk about that with Chris.
Done. For those watching the video can appreciate. But one other thing I specifically requested for today, usually if you've been watching, we have cups of water. But today I said, I'm going to need cups of coffee for Kristy because she's our coffee girl.
That's right.
No, just a fun little side fact with you and coffee. I mean, at our Halloween party, you're now the Starbucks Frappuccino girl.
Yep. You will never see me usually without a cup of coffee. It's just first thing in the morning till, usually about 3 o'clock.
I love it.
Yep.
Well, you are such a ray of sunshine here in the office, and this is fun getting to talk to you and even the episode with Tim as well. We wanted to talk to both of you guys just about what that's looked like over the years. Subsplash, from those from working here, from employees, past, present, people looking in, usually comment about Subsplash's culture. And you guys have done a lot to really build out just what that looks like from the core values of innovation, humility, innovation, excellence. And so wanted to be able to dig in and hear some from your perspective too. So as we get started, love to even just kick it off. How'd you meet Tim?
Yeah, I met Tim through Young Life, serving together at a camp called Malibu, which is up in Canada. We both had signed up for the same weekend, and we were assigned to doing dishes together. And it was great. I mean, right after that weekend, I pretty much knew I wanted to marry him, and he wasn't quite as sure, but he figured it out quickly. And it didn't take long before we realized that we just really enjoyed serving the Lord together and wanted to do that for the rest of our lives. So
I love it. And getting to know the two of you, you guys are very different, very complementary, but very different.
Yes.
You have a very free spirit, and and Tim is very planned and thought out. And
yes, I'm definitely more extroverted.
Yes.
Tim's much more introverted.
Yes.
He's an extroverted introvert.
Yeah, you are the ultimate host.
Oh,
it's like
you
light up when people come, and
that's my happy place. When people are in my home or with me, I'm just so happy.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And even just the way, you guys stretch each other too. Now, there's a funny story, which I think it's just, if you don't mind sharing it, just displays your different personalities. When you guys were dating, it involved a whiteboard and Tim really mapping out kind of
our really romantic story of when Tim
share
told
the
me,
romance of
when Tim first told me that he loved me. It wasn't like over candlelit dinner. It was near a whiteboard. And he told me that he loved me, and I told him I loved him back. And he's like, "You do?" And I said, "Yes." And he's like, "Do you want to see my life plan?" And I was like, "Sure." So then, he took me over to the whiteboard, and he sketched the whole thing out. There was timelines, there was everything. Bullet points. It was great. It was just such a glimpse into like our future. So we always have a whiteboard.
Yeah, no, it's so beautiful too. And the more you get to know Tim and that vision and intentionality, and he's a builder. Like he's an absolute builder.
He's a visionary. He likes to solve problems, which is great. Keeps my life fun and interesting, and it's great. It's a journey. It's an adventure for sure. Yeah,
and you're that kind of, you soften the edges too. Now, what did your role look like at Subsplash early on?
I initially did the overhead work for Tim to help him so he could actually get some billable work done. We had a consulting company, and I thought I was going into dental hygiene and was watching Tim not able to get very much work done, and so I offered to help, and then I just really enjoyed it. I loved building things with him and serving the Lord together, and so it It was great. We were having a good time. And so, yeah, I just sort of took over the accounting and bookkeeping and those roles and just kind of helping him plan out different things. And it's been fun.
Now, Subsplash, as it's grown over the years, you know, starting as a company that did all projects with Expedia, Microsoft, all these one-off custom projects, and then moving to being a product, having this app that we launched at a church, and other churches were saying, hey, we want an app, and it's okay, we can, you know, now move to being, instead of just these one-off, now we're a product, and then moving to a platform. Where, I mean, early on, where did you see Subsplash going? What was your, I mean, Tim had a vision for it. What was your thoughts of where you thought it was going to go?
Yeah, let's see here. I think Tim and I had always been really content with wherever God had us, with whether that was like little or if he wanted to grow it, great. We were excited for that. And so I think we were really thankful. We were living in a brick building and had a garage studio that you know of, that you got to work out of. I mean, that classic like tech story of working out of a garage. We had that, and we were really content. And the Lord just telling us to trust and obey, and wanting to be faithful with that, whatever he brought our way. And, you know, it just kept growing. And I think truly we probably have such a smaller idea of like what God is capable of doing. And so there have been moments over the last 10, 15 years that I have thought, oh, this is good, this is great, wow, this is big, okay, I can take this. And then realizing that like I've made God too small, and he's able to do so much more. And I still get hit with moments like that of looking around the company and seeing so many people with all their gifts and talents and what they're capable of and what they're passionate about, and what we're able to use the Subsplash platform to do, to be able to reach all nations and globally with the truth of Jesus. And it's so great. It's exciting. So
I love that, even just foundationally, those components of prayer that, you know, Jesus talks about, you know, those that come to the Lord, that hear his voice, that do what he tells him, that their foundation's built. It's a sturdy foundation, and it can weather storms that come through. And just this even beautiful place that we start when we're thinking about building culture of trust and obey. And so would love to hear too, any stories of that. I know that's been something you and Tim have really valued, but even just stories of how through different seasons of growth, ways that you guys have even experienced the Lord show up.
Completely. Well, one specific story that comes to mind was we were really in need of a developer, and a very specific type of developer. And we just thought, wow, we don't have a recruiter. We don't have anybody lined up. We don't know anybody. And, you know, we're
because up to that point, it was all through people that knew somebody.
And we really needed this. And so Tim and I just came together and we prayed very specifically that we needed a developer. And sure enough, the very next morning, Tim gets a call from an overly qualified developer that said, I want to work for you. And this has happened over and over and over and over again. And I think another thing about prayer that's so fun that I feel like I've really learned is that God is so good even when he says no, that like that's his protection, and that he is still good in that. And then he's also good in his yes. But I've just been really thankful to watch how the Lord has been working through Subsplash and just showing me how he answers prayer and even the little things.
And I've experienced that. I mean, the stories are so many, but even just one that comes to my mind too, that Subsplash, for those that have been in the app space, been with church apps, you'll know that a lot of what we can do are dictated by two stores, Apple and Google Play, if you didn't already know, but just ways that they'll make different decisions and rulings and these things that happen behind the scenes that actually, you know, at different aspects have been, okay, this is really putting us at a rubber meets the road kind of moment, that we need the Lord to show up in a way through this really large billion-dollar company called Apple or Google or and ways that he has places where things have looked very dark and where he shows up and
we've just prayed. Our teams have just prayed. And we can do only what we can do, and then God can take care of the rest, and he does things that were out of our control that we weren't able to do. And it's really amazing to see him walk with us in that.
And so even just as a summation, as we're thinking about culture, that one of the foundational elements I think you've really displayed, which is even helpful if you're starting to map of, okay, I lead a family, I lead a team, I lead an organization, I lead a company, that even just that foundational place of, okay, we're coming before the Lord, we're trusting and ways that he shows up. Another, as we kind of move to some other practical components, that is like very practical. But even just some others, one thing I've noticed with Subsplash too, that it has very much of a family feel.
It does.
What can you speak at all to that? Anything that has been intentional or just happened by happen chance?
Well, we hired family first.
Great start.
That's where we were recruited from. Was just family. Well, and because we got to start out so small, we got to be really intentional as well, just with all of our employees right up front, and got to walk with them through all the different seasons that they were walking through, whether that's just grief or starting a new family and different transitions. And so I think we got to really care for our employees, and that just feels familiar to us, that we would just know them and want to care for them and understand and hear them. And so I think our heart is to really help also just take care of their family in whatever ways. And so
whether it's through benefits, whether it's through
healthcare or working from home. I know that certain, being able to take your kid to school, or being able to show up for a basketball game, or, be able to host community group, those things, having that day to work from home, I know can be a huge blessing for families.
And even just kind of diversity of leadership, Tim's always very much valued you as part of the leadership team and the say into it. And you've been able to even bring, the eyes of a spouse of, hey, now you guys have 3 beautiful little girls and you stay home with them, but yet you have eyes of, okay, how can we care for our spouses, and how are we thinking about this, in places that, would just get lost otherwise. So
I'm really thankful for that. Even though my role is a quieter role, and I'm not here every day, I do feel like I get to have an influence and kind of get to share my side as, as a woman and as a spouse and different things.
Yeah. What are some other things that have required a lot of intentionality from you and Tim? There's the prayer aspect. There is the really caring for people as a whole. What are those other very intentional things that you guys have really tried to
for culture
to hone in on?
Well, for sure, we really like to keep our mission front and center in our values. We really
that's good.
We really try to reiterate that to all of our team members, that this is what we care about, and they seem to really care about it too, and that's why they're part of this, and that's what's so fun. So with prayer and
that's good. And even the mission and values component that you guys have, as leaders here, we're setting out this vision, even from a practical standpoint. We don't repeat it verbatim every company meeting, but it's said every company meeting in some form or fashion. And there's just this collectiveness of, we know that our mission is to glorify God and proclaim Jesus as Lord. That's just, whoever we work with at Subsplash, whether they know Jesus, whether they don't know Jesus, our mission to serve them is to really glorify God first. And so, I think that's played into as well, to just then as we transition to even how you guys have been really intentional about caring for people, and through, I know you've spoken too, it's you love people and seasons change and sometimes it doesn't work for them to be at Subsplash anymore.
Right. But so glorifying God, I've heard you talk about that, and I think that was something that just Tim and I have always wanted to do from the very beginning, and we've always had that in our mission statement, even from when we were doing consulting, that we've always carried that through, and that's been part of our mission and our goal of, and that everything belongs to the Lord, and so we care about that. And then what was your
and maybe even as we wrap it up too, of just even thinking about things that you've learned along the way with Subsplash, and as we're kind of thinking along the lines of, okay, somebody that's thinking about building in culture from someone that has, we kind of have a product of this, people really love to work here, and
I think I would give the advice of just really keeping people first in the company. We're really passionate about creating an amazing product, and we really care about our end users and people who use that, and we really care about peace of mind for our pastors in the church and people to when they experience Subsplash, that it's not hard and it's not difficult, but ultimately, like, we want to care about the people who are building those products. And so we try to do that and love you guys as much as possible, and we hope that you guys feel that, and we genuinely care about families and spouses, and are just so thankful that God would place them in Subsplash with all of their gifts and talents, and whether that means putting them in the right role. Sometimes they're not doing their best because they're not in the right role, but finding that right role for them, and then that passion and that joy comes, and I feel like that's contagious, and it creates for such a beautiful culture here at Subsplash.
And I mean, as different aspects of the body of Christ come together and each one layers in what their special uniqueness is. I mean, even from the story of you and Tim has this insatiable appetite for building and solving problems, and whether that's a business and, all the different strategies. And in knowing you two personally for so many years, you layer on this really beautiful, I'd say you guys cross in that like childlike faith with the Lord, which is something that has carried over in just ways that leadership, by virtue of how you display and how openly you talk about different components, that your actions speak louder than words, as the phrase goes. But there is this crossover of this beautiful childlike faith, but then you've been able to layer in, I think, and really help in aspects that, whether Subsplash employees know it or not, that care for people. And Tim obviously cares for people, but you have a really beautiful eye for the things that round the edges of where it goes in and out of each season, and how to holistically think about someone, and their family plays into that. And so
thank you. I mean, I really enjoy that aspect of Subsplash, and we are all a little childlike here, and we like to have fun, and we like to celebrate small wins and big wins, and have parties and do fun things, and yet still carry that maturity to be able to build products and serve our church and do those things. But thank you for saying that. I think Tim and I both really care about the families here and the teams here, and just the culture. It's been so fun. It's really fun for us, to be honest. I think that's why it's like we're really excited about being here. This building is my favorite place to visit. It has all of my favorite people in it, and they're so fun, and they're so joyful, and they're passionate about what they're doing, and we get to all be on mission together, doing something so great together. And it's beautiful, because watching people do things that we're not good at, and they're growing in that. So it's just been a fun journey.
I love it. Well, thank you for joining us today, Kristy. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe. It makes it easier for others to find us as well. Share it with a friend. Also, we'd love to hear from you. So if you have any questions, thoughts, email us at podcast@subsplash.com. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Equip and Engage, where we're sharing insights learned from thousands of conversations with leaders and pastors around the world. To follow along with these conversations, subscribe today or visit our website.